Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here again to unpack complex stories, pulling out the key insights from the sources you share.
That's right.
And today, we're looking at a case that honestly feels incredibly close to home for us. It involves something many of us love, a family cruise.
Mm.
And this particular story, well, it really makes you think about unexpected vulnerabilities, even when you think you're just on a carefree vacation.
It really does.
Our mission today is to really dig into every crucial detail we can find, explore all the different theories, and there are many, and try to understand the, frankly, frustrating lack of answers around a disappearance that is still just deeply unsettling.
Absolutely. It's a tough one.
We are focusing on the mysterious vanishing of Amy Lynn Bradley. She was a young woman who disappeared from a Royal Caribbean cruise ship, gosh, over 2 decades ago now.
Yeah, back in 1998.
And as pretty avid cruisers on Royal Caribbean ourselves, this story really hits differently. It makes you pause.
It really does. It highlights how something meant for relaxation, for joy, can just turn into this enduring, awful mystery. It leaves this unbearable void for the family.
Exactly.
So for this deep dive, we've gathered quite a range of sources. We want to be comprehensive. We're looking at the recent Netflix documentary, which many of you might have seen. It's called Amy Bradley is Missing.
Very impactful.
Yeah. And alongside that, we've got articles from People magazine, some reports from Fox News. There are in-depth pieces from a blog called Over the Shoulder, extensive coverage from ABC News over the years.
Right.
And also the really detailed information you can find on places like Wikipedia. So we're going to try and navigate through all the known facts, the really disturbing theories, and just the many, many perplexing questions that still hang over this case.
Okay, let's try and give you the most detailed picture we can.
Hey.
The disappearance. A sudden vanishing act. So let's start with Amy herself. Let's get to know the person at the center of this, Amy Lynn Bradley. When she disappeared, she was only 23 years old.
Just starting out, really.
Yeah, a recent college graduate. She had a degree in sports psychology. And she sounds like she was incredibly capable, very athletic, known for being a strong swimmer.
And a former lifeguard. That's a key point.
Definitely. She was working full-time at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse at the time, but she'd actually scaled back her hours. She was getting ready to start a brand new job.
Right. A really promising one, I think. Computer consulting.
Exactly. A computer consulting firm right after this trip. So this cruise wasn't just some last-minute thing.
No, it was special. Her dad, Ron, had actually won it through his employer.
Wow, okay.
So it was meant to be this celebratory, relaxing family vacation in the Caribbean.
And Amy, well, apparently she had a bit of apprehension about heights and, being out on the huge ocean.
Which is understandable. A lot of people feel that way.
Totally. But she was genuinely excited for this trip, mainly because her younger brother, Brad, was going to be there with the family.
Right. It was meant to be a real family bonding time, just a happy occasion. And it's important to understand a bit about her personal life around then, too. The sources give us some context. She'd come out as gay while she was in college, which is, a significant personal step. And while her parents initially expressed some disappointment, apparently, they very quickly made it clear they loved her unconditionally. Her happiness, her identity, that was what mattered most to them.
That's good to hear. Speaks to the family dynamic.
It does. And another detail, something that becomes incredibly important later on, her tattoos. She had some very distinctive ones.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, there was a Tasmanian devil spinning a basketball on her shoulder blade.
Okay, specific.
Very. A sun on her lower back, a Chinese symbol on her right ankle described as unique, and a lizard kind of around her navel.
Wow.
These weren't just small things, they were clear identifiers, and they become absolutely crucial when we get to the alleged sightings later. They're potentially key.
Okay, definitely keeping those in mind. So let's move to the ship. The Rhapsody of the Seas, Royal Caribbean.
That's the one.
The cruise left from San Juan, Puerto Rico, heading towards Curaçao.
Right.
And the night before she disappeared, this would be March 23rd, 1998, Amy and her brother Brad were out pretty late.
Just doing what you do on a cruise, right? Enjoying themselves.
Yeah, soaking it all in, socializing, dancing at the ship's disco. They were interacting with other passengers, even members of the ship's band, Blue Orchid.
That's the name, yeah. Blue Orchid. They were apparently there until the early hours of March 24th.
Sounds like a typical fun cruise night.
Yeah.
Laughing, carefree.
But this is where things start to get complicated. And where we meet a key figure from that night, Alistair Yellow Douglas.
The musician from the band.
Exactly, from Blue Orchid. He was definitely seen dancing with Amy, drinking with her that evening.
Okay.
But here's the thing. His story about when he left doesn't match up with what other people saw.
How so?
Well, Douglas claims he left the party much earlier, said he went back to his cabin around 1 a.m., but multiple other witnesses later reported seeing him with Amy up on the ship's upper deck much later, like well into the early morning.
Like when?
Specifically between 5:30 and 5:45 a.m., around the time she vanished.
Wow. It's a big difference.
Huge. And some even said they saw him give her a drink around that time. Something with a dark liquid.
Okay, that's immediately suspicious, that discrepancy.
It really is. It raises instant questions about his timeline, his involvement, what really happened in those critical hours before dawn.
So after the disco, what happened then?
Well, the ship's door lock system, the computerized one, it did confirm that Amy and Brad got back to their family's cabin.
Okay, so they made it back together.
Yes. Brad said they sat out on the balcony for a bit, just talking. Then he went inside to sleep.
And Amy.
He said Amy fell asleep shortly after, apparently on one of the lounge chairs out there on the balcony.
All right. Now imagine being Ron, Amy's dad. He wakes up briefly, early morning, maybe 5:05, 5:30 a.m.
Right around that time, yeah.
And he sees her. Sees Amy still sleeping out there on the balcony lounge chair. He nods off again.
Just for a short while.
And when he wakes up again, just a bit later, she's gone.
Just vanished. The horror of that moment is unimaginable.
Absolute gut-wrenching. And what's really telling, maybe the most telling detail about her sudden disappearance, is what she didn't take.
Right. What she left behind.
She only took her cigarettes and her lighter. That's it. But crucially, her shoes. They were still in the cabin, left behind.
That detail is so powerful. Peter Valentin, he's a former Connecticut State police detective involved in looking at this case later.
Yeah.
He highlighted this. It could mean she just planned to pop out for a quick smoke, intended a very brief absence.
Oh, yeah.
Or, much more chillingly, it could suggest coercion. That she was taken unwillingly, maybe didn't have a chance to grab her shoes.
It's such a small detail, but it speaks volumes, doesn't it? About her intentions, or maybe the lack of them.
Absolutely. And that detail, the shoes, it kind of leads into one of the most critical, most frustrating aspects of the immediate aftermath. The delays and the response.
Okay, Pill, look about that.
So the Bradley family, they're in absolute panic mode. They immediately tell the ship's authorities what's happened.
Naturally.
And they're begging them, urging them, you need to stop people getting off the ship because the ship is docking right then in Curaçao.
Right. Perfect timing to just walk off.
Exactly. And they wanted an immediate ship-wide announcement, Amy is missing.
Makes total sense. Standard procedure, you'd think.
You would think. But what's just astonishing and a huge point of anger for the family is that the ship's purser's office, they refused.
Refused? Why?
Their reason. They said it was too early to make an announcement like that.
Too early. Someone's missing.
I know. It's baffling. The announcement was eventually made, but much, much later, like 7:50 a.m.
7:50, but people would have already been disembarking for ages by then.
Precisely. A significant majority of passengers had already streamed off the ship.
Oh, my God.
And the family argues, quite rightly, that this delay just severely hampered everything. It potentially allowed crucial witnesses or even someone involved to just melt away into Curaçao.
That decision or lack of decision is just staggering.
It really is. It fundamentally impacted the chance to secure the scene, to interview people while memories were fresh.
It gets worse, right? With the brother, Brad.
Yeah. Adding to the family's growing suspicion and frustration, Brad remembers Alistair Yellow, Douglas, the musician, approaching him after Amy had disappeared, but before any general announcement was made on the ship.
What did he say?
He apparently said something like, "Hey man, I'm sorry to hear about your sister."
Wait, before the announcement? How would he know?
Exactly. That's what raised massive red flags for the family. How did Douglas know Amy was missing if it hadn't been announced publicly yet?
Okay. That's incredibly suspicious.
Hugely suspicious. Now, the FBI did interview Douglas, and the initial report was that he passed a polygraph test.
Right, I remember hearing that.
But the producer of the Netflix documentary, Ari Mark, he later revealed something different. He said that test result wasn't passed, it was actually inconclusive.
Inconclusive. That's not the same thing at all.
Not at all. It's a significant difference. It means they couldn't definitively say he was telling the truth or lying. It just casts more doubt, raises more questions about that initial polygraph and, well, Douglas's story.
Wow. That changes the perception quite a bit.
It absolutely does. And you have to remember, polygraphs aren't foolproof science anyway. They measure physiological responses, stress, heart rate.
Right, nerves could affect it.
Exactly. An inconclusive result just means the responses were ambiguous. It leaves that lingering doubt. And speaking of frustration, Brad Bradley has been incredibly outspoken about his anger towards the ship's cruise director at the time, Kirk
Oh,
Detweiler.
yeah? What did he say?
He described Detweiler's attitude as flippant, said he showed zero empathy, both back then and even now, reflecting on it.
Flippant. In the face of a missing person.
Yeah. Apparently, Detweiler made comments in the documentary, things like, life goes on, cruises go on, we're not going to stop everybody's cruise because there's a missing girl.
Oh, that's awful. I can see why that caused outrage.
Understandably. For the family and for viewers, Brad believes that attitude kind of reflects a wider issue, maybe a lack of accountability or indifference within the cruise industry, at least back then, regarding passenger safety.
The family felt they were met with resistance.
That's what they reported, yeah. Resistance and indifference. They were incredibly frustrated by the lack of an immediate lockdown, the fact that passengers weren't searched before leaving. They felt crucial time, crucial opportunities were just lost. Irrevocably lost, perhaps.
It's hard to argue with that feeling, given the circumstances.
And connecting this back to standard procedure or lack thereof, forensic experts like Peter Valentin pointed out another massive investigative mistake, a truly critical one.
What was that?
Amy's stateroom. The cabin she vanished from, it was cleaned, sanitized. Before the FBI agents could even get there to properly secure it and process the scene.
Oh.
Not kidding. The documentary producer confirmed it. This potentially destroyed vital physical evidence, fingerprints, hair fibers, maybe trace DNA, tiny blood spots, anything.
Who cleaned it? Why?
Apparently, the cleaner's identity remains unknown, but the act itself, it could have just wiped away crucial clues. Valentin called it a fundamental error. In any missing person case, let alone one on a cruise ship crossing international waters, preserving that initial scene is everything.
That's just unbelievable incompetence, or worse, it actively hinders the investigation from the start.
Exactly. It compromised the scene before the real investigation could even begin, too. The search and emerging theories.
So after the ship leaves Curaçao, after that initial chaos and, frankly, mishandling, what about the search? Were there efforts made?
Oh, yes. Extensive efforts were launched pretty quickly. The Dutch Caribbean Coast Guard got involved. They used, I think, 3 helicopters, radar planes, scouring the ocean.
Okay.
And Royal Caribbean, they did charter a boat as well to help with the search efforts. But despite all that searching, aerial, maritime, nothing. No trace of Amy was ever found. Not in the water, not on land nearby. The ocean just gave up no clues.
It's so vast. Easy to disappear without a trace, sadly.
Tragically easy. Initially, with no immediate evidence of foul play, the authorities kind of leaned towards 2 possibilities.
Which were?
Accidental fall overboard or, sadly, suicide.
Right.
But as things progressed, investigators later stated there was actually no evidence to really support either of those theories.
Why not?
Well, largely because of Amy's background. Strong swimmer, former lifeguard, and accidental drowning seemed less probable to them.
Okay, that makes sense.
And an FBI spokesperson, back then, also said there was no evidence of foul play, which is partly why the case eventually went cold, officially speaking.
But the family never believed that, did they? The lack of foul play evidence.
No, absolutely not. That conclusion, or lack of conclusion, was a major point of contention for them. They felt instinctively, deep down, that something far more sinister had happened to Amy. That official stance kind of shut down avenues they desperately wanted explored.
And they tried to take action, didn't they?
Wow.
Against the cruise line.
They did. Believing she was kidnapped, possibly still alive somewhere, they filed 2 separate lawsuits against Royal Caribbean. They sued for negligence.
Trying to hold them accountable for that initial response.
Exactly. For what they saw as a complete failure of duty right after she disappeared. But unfortunately for the family, both lawsuits were ultimately dismissed by the courts.
So, no legal recourse there either.
Nope. Royal Caribbean consistently maintained they acted appropriately and responsibly. So those legal doors closed, leaving the family still searching, still without answers.
Just hitting walls everywhere.
Pretty much. And then much later, something else surfaced that's just perplexing and highlights another potential missed opportunity.
What's that?
In 2010, a human jawbone washed ashore in Aruba.
Aruba. Okay.
Now, this initially got huge attention because people thought it might belong to Natalie Holloway.
Ah, right. Another tragic disappearance in the Caribbean.
Exactly. But forensic tests eventually ruled that out. It wasn't Natalie's.
Okay, so
So here's the baffling part. The bone was confirmed as human, likely Caucasian. But despite that, and despite other unsolved disappearances in the Caribbean, like Amy's, no further DNA testing was done on it.
wait, they didn't compare it to Amy's DNA or other missing persons.
Apparently not. The resources, the process, maybe it was deemed too complex or costly, but the fact remains they didn't exhaust that possibility. It could potentially have been linked to Amy or someone else, but we'll likely never know. It feels like a significant investigative gap.
Another lead just left hanging. It's incredibly frustrating.
Deeply frustrating, especially when you consider the theory that gained so much traction over the years despite the initial lack of official foul play findings.
You mean the human trafficking theory?
Exactly. The idea that Amy was kidnapped, abducted off that ship, and sold into human trafficking.
And this wasn't just speculation, right? There were sightings, evidence.
Yes, this theory is powerfully supported by several really alarming alleged sightings and some pieces of evidence that emerged later, primarily in the Caribbean. When you hear the details, it's hard not to see why this theory took hold so strongly.
Okay, let's go through those. Why did this theory gain so much ground?
It's really down to a consistent pattern of these disturbing eyewitness accounts from different people in different places, but with striking similarities. Let's break them down.
Okay.
First, back in Curaçao, right after she vanished, a local taxi driver came forward. He said he saw a woman matching Amy's description. He specifically mentioned her distinctive green eyes running frantically in a parking lot. She looked distressed, was desperately looking for a phone.
Okay.
And then he watched as two unidentified men abruptly grabbed her and led her away. That immediate sense of control, of coercion, it's chilling.
Yeah.
Then, maybe even more compelling, there was an account from a Canadian tourist, David Carmichael. He was on a popular diving beach in Curaçao. He said he saw a woman who looked strikingly like Amy. And importantly, he mentioned seeing her distinctive tattoos. She was with two men he described as aggressive, flanking her.
Like guards.
Sort of, yeah. And he felt she was trying to subtly communicate with him, even looking down at her tattoos, as if trying to draw his attention to them to identify herself.
Wow. Did he report it?
He did. He was so convinced it was her that after seeing her picture later on America's Most Wanted, he actually flew to Virginia to meet the Bradley family personally. That's how certain he felt.
That's powerful testimony.
Very. Then there's perhaps the most chilling and also controversial sighting. This one came from a U.S. Navy petty officer named William Hefner.
What did he see?
He claimed that in January 1999, so several months after Amy disappeared, he was in a brothel in Curaçao.
Okay.
And a woman approached him. She identified herself as Amy Bradley. She begged him for help, said she was being held against her will.
She actually said her name was Amy Bradley.
That's what he claims, yes.
Huh?
She apparently told him she'd left the cruise ship looking for drugs and got trapped in this situation. Now, he didn't report it immediately.
Why not?
He was worried about his military career, understandably, given he was in a brothel.
Right. That complicates things.
Hugely. And tragically, by the time he did come forward, the brothel had burned down, making verification impossible. But Hefner remained absolutely adamant the woman was Amy, describing her distress vividly.
God, that's horrifying. Any other sightings?
Yes, years later, in March 2005, this time in Barbados, a tourist named Judy Maurer claimed she saw a woman she believed was Amy in a department store restroom.
In Barbados now.
Yeah, Bridgetown. This woman was with four men. Maurer overheard them discussing what sounded like an illegal deal.
Okay.
And the woman, who Maurer felt strongly was Amy, reportedly said her name softly, Amy, and then, even more disturbingly, asked the men, "Can we stop and see the children?"
See the children. What does that even mean?
It's incredibly unsettling. It suggests something maybe deeper, more organized, perhaps using family or children as a form of coercion or control. It points towards a really sinister, complex situation.
These sightings are, wow, hard to dismiss, especially with the tattoo mentioned.
It's very hard. The consistency, the specific details like tattoos mentioned by unrelated witnesses across different islands, it paints a disturbing picture. But then came the visual evidence.
Photos.
Yeah. In 2005, these explicit photos surfaced on an adult website. They showed a woman identified only as Jaws who bore a really striking resemblance to Amy.
Yeah, the tattoos.
The photos appeared to show tattoos that were identical matches to Amy's distinctive ones. It's deeply unsettling to look at them. It adds this grim visual weight to the trafficking theory.
Were they confirmed to be her?
Well, a forensic detective hired by the Bradley family analyzed them, and he allegedly concluded it was a perfect match based on identifying features.
The perfect match.
But the FBI, working with the tech available then, couldn't officially authenticate them. They cited the possibility of digital alteration. You know, early 2000s, image manipulation was possible, even if less common than today. So officially, it remains unconfirmed.
Still, the resemblance must have been strong.
Very strong. The documentary producer, Ari Mark, he acknowledged the uncertainty, but said he personally tends to lean towards something happened to her versus accident when considering those photos. They definitely fueled the family's belief that she was alive and held captive.
God, imagine seeing those photos as a parent. Horrifying.
Unimaginable. And beyond the sightings and the photos, there was also this weird digital trail.
What was that?
Someone using an IP address based in Barbados kept visiting Amy's official missing person webpage repeatedly.
Actress browsing. Or something more.
It felt like more. These visits often happened almost ritualistically on her birthday or on the anniversary of her disappearance.
Seriously, that's creepy.
Yeah, and they weren't quick visits. The user would apparently spend over 30 minutes on the page each time.
Like they were studying it. Or taunting someone.
It felt like a major lead, didn't it? Almost like someone leaving digital breadcrumbs or maybe just obsessing. But tragically, investigators apparently failed to adequately trace that IP address back to a specific person or location.
Another dead end. So frustrating.
Incredibly. But when you connect all these dots, the consistent sightings, the photos, this strange digital activity from Barbados, they really do strongly support that human trafficking theory.
Right.
The sources really emphasize how the whole cruise ship environment, transient populations, moving between jurisdictions quickly combine with those initial investigative delays. It could create loopholes.
Loopholes perfect for traffickers.
Exactly. Loopholes easily exploited by people looking to abduct someone, move them quickly across borders, make them disappear into that world. The lack of immediate coordinated action just opens that window of opportunity.
And there were other odd things on the ship too, weren't there? Even before she vanished.
Yes, besides the whole issue with Yellow Douglas's conflicting story, there were reports that Amy's photos, the professional ones taken on board, they were missing from the display stall where passengers buy them. The family looked meticulously, apparently, but none of Amy were there.
So they thought someone deliberately removed them.
That was their fear, yeah, that someone was trying to erase her presence or maybe took them for their own reasons.
And the waiter.
Right. There was also an incident with a waiter. He apparently kept trying to pass Amy a note, inviting her to go drinking with him once they got to shore in Curaçao.
Was he ever questioned thoroughly?
It's unclear how deeply these leads were pursued, but taken together, the missing photos, the persistent waiter, Yellow's inconsistencies, it contributes to this unsettling feeling that maybe Amy was being watched, maybe even targeted before she disappeared.
Just layers upon layers of suspicion and unanswered questions.
Exactly. 3. The family's enduring struggle and unanswered questions.
Through all of this, for more than 2 decades now, Amy's family, her parents, Ron and Iva, her brother Brad, they haven't stopped, have they?
No, the resolve is just incredible, unwavering. They've never given up hope. They talk about living with this unexplained gut feeling that she's out there.
Wow, imagine carrying that every single day.
It's a kind of ambiguous loss, isn't it? That constant state of not knowing. The documentary producer, Ari Mark, he talked about how the family is understandably shattered by this.
Of course.
But he also expressed so much admiration for their warmth, their sense of family, their sheer strength. He mentioned gaining their trust was a really important and gradual process for the filmmakers.
I can imagine. Their resilience is remarkable.
Truly. But their determination, their high-profile campaign to find Amy, including offering that huge reward.
How much was it again?
A $250,000 reward for her safe return and $50,000 for information leading to her location.
That's substantial.
Very. But sadly, that visibility, that desperation, it made them vulnerable. Vulnerable to exploitation.
Oh,
Well, there's this truly awful story about a con man named Frank Jones.
what did he do?
In late 1999, so not long after Amy vanished, he approached the Bradleys. He posed as an ex-Army Special Forces guy.
Okay.
Claimed he had this elite team that could rescue Amy. He spun these elaborate stories, said his team had seen her, that she was being held by armed Colombians in Curaçao.
Oh my God. Did they believe him?
He was convincing. And disturbingly, he somehow knew intimate details like a specific lullaby Amy's mother used to sing to her.
How could he know that?
Must have gleaned it from news reports or maybe even closer surveillance. It was incredibly manipulative. He completely duped them.
Did they give him money?
Yes, over $200,000. He also defrauded a missing children's organization. It was a despicable exploitation of their hope and pain.
Was he caught?
Thankfully, yes. He was eventually exposed, convicted of mail fraud, and got 5 years in prison. But the damage to the family, emotionally and financially, it just underscores the terrible toll this takes. They were willing to try anything.
That's just cruel beyond words, exploiting that kind of grief.
Absolutely sickening. And this whole case, happening when it did in 1998, it really highlights the challenges of investigating back then, before the digital age really took hold.
Right, no smartphones pinging locations everywhere.
Exactly. No constant stream of CCTV footage tracking movements like we often have now. The lack of that electronic evidence, it creates, as the documentary producer called it, a huge gray area.
Makes solving these older cold cases so much harder.
Immensely harder. So much relies on memory, on eyewitness accounts that can fade or be flawed. Peter Valentin, the detective,
Yeah.
he basically said this case will likely hinge on somebody remembering that they know something. It really emphasizes the importance of public memory, public awareness.
Which is where things like the recent documentary come in, I guess.
Precisely. It brought Amy's story back into the spotlight in a big way. And Ari Mark, the producer, confirmed they have actually received a few leads since the series aired.
Really? Any developments?
Well, he was careful to say they are currently unverified, but still, it shows that renewed attention can generate new information, even decades later. It offers that glimmer of hope that maybe someone, somewhere, will finally connect the dots or decide to speak up.
Let's hope so. So bringing it all together, Amy Lynn Bradley, her disappearance is just one of the most haunting, most baffling, unsolved mysteries at sea, isn't it?
It really is. All the details we've walked through. You know, that personal letter she wrote to an ex-girlfriend before the cruise where she talked about feeling stranded and needing rescue.
Oh, I didn't know about that. How poignant.
Incredibly poignant, almost eerily prescient in hindsight. She wrote things like, I feel like there is an ocean between us. Like I'm on a desert island waiting for you to rescue me. Save me, please. Stranded, Amy. Just heartbreaking given what happened.
God, yeah. That plus the chilling sightings, the photos, that deeply frustrating initial response for the cruise line.
Yeah.
It all just continues to disturb and confuse.
And it leaves so many critical questions hanging, doesn't it? Why weren't those leads pursued more aggressively? The Barbados IP address, the jawbone in Aruba.
Right. What happened there?
We don't know. And what's the full story with the explicit photos? What really happened with the crew members, especially Yellow Douglas and his conflicting accounts?
And always coming back to that small detail, leaving her shoes.
That tiny detail, taking only cigarettes and a lighter, it just hangs there, suggesting something sudden, unplanned. Or, as Valentin suggests, potentially coercion, not a voluntary departure.
Amy's story is just such a stark, painful reminder that even in places that feel safe, secure, like a cruise ship, vulnerabilities exist, hidden dangers.
It really forces you to question how much we truly know, or maybe how much is covered up when someone simply vanishes at sea. And it shows the extraordinary, heartbreaking lengths families will go to, just searching for answers, living in that awful limbo.
The disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley leaves us with just these profound, unsettling questions. It's a stark illustration of how a vibrant young life can just evaporate, leaving a family trapped in uncertainty.
Yeah, and her case really underscores the need for vigilance, for accountability, not just from us as individuals, but from the large corporations, the institutions that carry millions of people around the world.
Absolutely. And the family's hope, their refusal to give up after all this time, it's truly a testament to the human spirit, isn't it?
It really is. And the renewed attention from the documentary, it does offer that sliver of possibility that maybe someone, somewhere, holds that crucial piece of information. The piece needed to finally bring Amy home, or at least give her loved ones some form of closure.
So if you are listening to this deep dive, and if anything we've discussed resonates, if you have any information at all, it doesn't matter how small or insignificant you think it might be, regarding the disappearances of Amy Lynn Bradley.
Please come forward.
Her family has lived with this agony for far, far too long. Any detail could be the key.
You can reach out to your local FBI office, or if you're outside the U.S., the nearest American embassy or consulate. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is another resource. Any tip, any piece of evidence, even from decades ago, it could be the one that finally unlocks this.
What do you, listening now, make of all these unresolved pieces in Amy's case? The sightings, the photos, the delays, and maybe how does hearing this story in detail reshape how you think about safety, about vigilance, especially when you travel?
Lots to think about.
Definitely. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.